Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for tonight's Health and Wellness panel on mental health. My name is Jordan, and I'm the Human Resources Lead and a board member for the Alberta Esports Association. Uh, with me tonight are three guests who are extremely knowledgeable about this space. If you've seen previous AESA health panels, you'll likely recognize Matt and Alex, our friends from Mindbuffs. And as well, we have a representative from the Canadian Mental Health Association, Elyse, who is a peer support facilitator. All three are extremely knowledgeable about this topic, and given that we just wrapped up Mental Health Week, the timing of this discussion is so apt. Before I give a brief overview of what we'll be talking about, I'd like to give them a brief couple of seconds to introduce themselves. So let's start with Matt.
Hey guys, again, if you've seen me speak before, it's good to have you join again. So Alex and I have started Mindbuffs a few months ago. We're a sport and performance psychology business that works with mostly athletes, people in like the business sector, entrepreneurs, and esports, the huge passion of ours that we kind of work in that industry. I myself am a avid gamer. My grandma was the one who taught me how to hold a controller, and it all kind of started from as young as 5 years old. So gaming is something I'm really passionate about, and in terms of what Alex and I are doing at Mindbus, we really want to help foster an even stronger and healthier relationship within the esports community, both on the professional side and even just the community side. So that's kind of what we bring to the table, and yeah, looking forward to kind of speaking more on what it is that we offer and some of our knowledge today.
Cool. Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I don't have much to add from what Matt said. I am a registered psychologist here and working with Matt. I think Matt gave a great overview of what we do, and like I said, our goal is really just to help foster, healthy gaming culture and a gaming environment. I recently started gaming, so I'm new. I'm enjoying it a lot. I bought a Switch and a PS4. So I'm on it and we're excited. So I'm slowly entering in. So any tips and tricks would be welcomed.
Excellent. I love to hear that, Alex. And we'll throw it over to Elyse.
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Elyse. I work with the Canadian Mental Health Association Edmonton region, and my role with CMHA is I am a peer support facilitator for one of our programs that I'll speak a little bit more to called Caregiver Connections, which supports loved ones who support, or sorry, caregivers who support loved ones with mental illness or mental health challenges. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. It's an exciting presentation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Uh, really, thank you to everyone, to all of you. It's so good to have you on this panel, and I really can't wait to get into our topics. Before we can get into them, though, I'd like to give a general content warning about what we'll be talking about. We will be delving into some particularly heavy mental health topics, perhaps even delving into language around suicide. So if you're not in the right headspace for this right now, I invite you to come back to the stream after this panel is done, or you can view this video when it's posted on YouTube in the coming weeks. With that in mind, what we'll be talking about today centers around the theme of connection. Connection, especially during a time like what everyone is experiencing right now, is key. So we'll start by first giving everyone some tools to assess your own self-awareness and broaden your own mental health vocabulary about how you're feeling. Then we'll transition into talking about connections within a broader sense with people in your lives. And then finally, we'll end with resources that are available to both that are available both from CMHA as well as within the Edmonton region that you can reach out to if you are struggling. So first, we'll start with Matt. Matt, building a mental health vocabulary and toolkit is an important first step in building self-connection. So what does that look like, and what kinds of forms can it take?
So you guys will kind of see today that, just like kind of Jordan was saying, the way that we're streamlining this is really under the pretense that in order to truly be able to connect with other people, you need to be able to connect with yourself first. And in a shorter way of saying that, self-awareness. And so what we're going to specifically do in the first 10 minutes here is kind of look at how we can kind of increase our self-awareness in regards to how our body communicates to us. It's amazing how many people that I've worked with don't realize until they're in their 30s, 40s, sometimes even 50s. Heck, I even had a talk with my dad last week where he was learning things about his body that he didn't realize were kind of always there. And for a lot of people, before we notice a thought, be it positive or negative, an emotion, positive or negative, oftentimes our brain is sending us information directly to our body before any of that is present. And that can happen in a myriad of different ways. And so what I want to do today is to kind of just shed some light on specifically the ways in which a lot of people experience that kind of communication to their body. And I'm even going to use Jordan for a minute or two, use him as a guinea pig here to kind of learn from him, like how his body responds to something that he might find stressful in the future. And so you will see that there is almost like a universal commonality between where we specifically experience some kind of sensation in our body and what our brain is trying to tell us. There is some variance from person to person, but from in my experience and Alex's, it's like a universal language that where we experience and how we experience it in our body is oftentimes a direct correlation to something very specific that our brain is trying to teach us. And so to kind of get that started before I give more broad examples, I'm going to have Jordan here answer a simple question. And then we're going to kind of see how he responds, and I'll ask some follow-up questions. So Jordan,
Yes.
when you think about your not so distant future, is there something, in the next few weeks or in the next couple months that maybe is something stressful that either you're not really looking forward to or is going to be challenging?
Yes. So I am moving at the end of May. So that's kind of what's on my mind, at the back of my mind, pretty much nonstop for the past month. So
And when you often think about, or even right now, obviously you'll probably notice like the body's responding like it would to kind of any stress, but is there a particular place in your body that you notice like a sensation when you think about like that move that's coming up?
it's kind of like deep in my gut, and also like my hands get a little tingly, and that's kind of where it's localized
Right.
for me.
And when you think about like just your life in general, when you typically feel kind of like that deep kind of sensation in your gut, can you think of other times in which you felt that way as well?
Um, it was mostly like bigger changes that I knew were coming that I didn't necessarily want to deal with, but that I knew once I just dealt with it, it wasn't as big as I was hyping it up to be, right? I just needed to get over it essentially.
Right, right. So then you kind of talk about how like your brain is like popcorn, you're getting all these different thoughts when you're thinking about the move. Um,
Yes.
when you know that there is change on the horizon, do you typically find like your brain is over analyzing everything and looking to like plan for every like little detail?
Oh yeah, exactly.
So oftentimes a lot of people will experience either almost like tension headaches or like that kind of gut sensation that you're talking about when there's a part of their brain that is worried that there's going to be things that are outside of their control that are going to make it like more stressful than it needs to be. When there's
Right.
too many variables that you aren't directly in control of, oftentimes the brain will like be like in overdrive and be like, okay, we need to think of every possibility so that nothing bad happens. And then oftentimes we feel that pressure like building up in our gut as well. So a lot of people experience the sensation like in your head or in your gut as a I have no control or almost like a helpless type feeling. Does that kind of sound like similar to what it might be for you?
You're basically reading me right now. So yes.
Well, that's what's really cool is that like I'm not reading you. I'm just reading
Mhm.
the way in which the brain communicates to people in general. And so what's really helpful about that is that a lot of people, this is such a common experience for people when there's something stressful on the horizon, which is hello, like being human, there's always things in the future that we're kind of stressing about. If we can notice immediately when we got that tingle in our gut, or when we're noticing that our brain is just exploding into thoughts, oh, wait a second. This is happening because my brain is trying to protect me from feeling helpless or not having control. So, right in that moment of awareness, I can then tell myself, hey, it's okay. I know there's a lot of things outside of my control, but there are things I can do now that will increase the chance of what I want happening to happen. So, thank you, brain, for trying to warn me, but I'm good. I'm going to get back to what's happening in the present moment. And so we can do that with absolutely every kind of way that our body communicates with us. And so I'll kind of list a couple other general ways in which our bodies kind of communicate to us. So a lot of people experience pressure and tension in their neck or their shoulders. And again, there's quite a universal commonality here. When people experience that kind of pressure that way, I mean, you can even like see the sinking feeling. It's oftentimes people who are believe that they have a lot of responsibility, or they don't want to let people down, and they can like feel the weight of that pressure, that baggage. Like all the metaphors we have in our society literally speak to how our brain tries to let us know, hey man, you have a lot of things on your plate that you don't want to mess up. You're responsible for a lot, so you better be mindful. But we don't need to be carrying the weight if we know in the moment that that's what our brain's trying to do. A lot of people that walk around, and this is most people that walk around with the case of the not good enoughs or the fear of failure, will feel it in their chest. Think about like even a video game that you played where you made a mistake in a game, or you like lost the boss again. Oftentimes the initial response is, it's like that sinking in feeling. And that's typically how our brain says, hey, like you failed right now, like you made a mistake, like, and it tries to make it painful so that we don't do it again. But oftentimes that can start a vicious cycle. So if we can notice that we're starting to like bring the shoulders in and we're starting to cower, wait a second, okay, our brain's telling me that I'm feeling not good enough right now. Just take a nice deep breath and like talk to myself. I'm okay, I made a mistake, let's move on. One of the funniest ones, and actually experienced this with a client the other day, he has a really difficult conversation that he needs to have with his parents in the next week. And all I had him do, just like Jordan, was like, I want you to think about your parents. And I was like, tell me the first thing that you notice in your body. And he said, my legs. My legs started like tensing up. I was like, and why do you think that is? Run. Yup. For any of you that experience feet that are tapping, think of all of the years in school. Think of all of the years you're sitting in that chair in the classroom and your feet are just going like crazy. Your brain is trying to tell you GTFO, get out of here. We're trapped. We need to move. Sometimes it's that obvious, like, gee, my feet's moving, time to go. And sometimes there's more subtle ways. And that's where, if you're able to kind of explore yourself, what that is, you may be able to learn and be able to communicate and address things as they happen in the moment rather than later. Now you'll see that this will just take a few seconds. This is a perfect little exercise that any of you can Google right now, called the Anger Iceberg. You'll see it on the other screen here. Most people's dominant emotion is anger, and that's only because they don't know what's below the anger. So I would encourage all of you to take a look at this image and go, okay, I know what anger feels like. Most of us know what that feels like, kind of like a whole body, someone's going to get hurt real soon kind of feeling. But it could be any one of these and a myriad of others. So a good exercise is to simply kind of look at this image here and then circle a few of the words that really jump out at you, like, oh, actually, I don't think it's like anger. I think it's kind of feeling overwhelmed. And then even if you circle overwhelmed, it's like, okay, well, what am I overwhelmed with? And you keep expanding until you find the specific things that your brain is reacting to. And this is a really simple exercise that anyone can do to kind of like learn more about themselves. So Jordan, thank you for letting me ask you that question. It's such an incredible way to learn about yourself. And again, the reason why it's important that we start here, and this is where you'll see what Alex is about to talk about, is that if you don't know the kind of stress you're experiencing and why you're experiencing it, you might have no idea that you even need to connect with someone. Or you might think that there are just too many things in the way of you being able to connect with people. And so the more that you can learn about how you respond to stress and how your body and how your brain is communicating to you, then you're going to have a much stronger sense of what kind of support you need to be able to help yourself if you can't do it in the moment yourself. Because, I mean, hey, we're meant to be in relationship. We're meant to be with other people. And so Alex will give kind of some specific examples of specifically the things that we say to ourselves and that kind of prevent us from connecting with others. So I hope that this was kind of informative or helpful for you guys. And of course, as a team from Mindbuffs here, we're always here to answer any questions you might have afterwards and whenever. And yeah, I'll just leave the floor here to Alex to kind of build upon that.
Yeah, that was really incredible, Matt. Thank you so much for discussing that with us. Given that we've now established a sort of personal baseline that we can assess our own well-being, I am actually going to pass off to Alex now to discuss connection in a broader sense. So Alex, we've just heard the relationship with ourselves is a key step in connection, but also our external environment still exists. So how is the current climate alter the way we view connection, or in some cases, disconnection?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, this is a good segue from what Matt has talked about. There's kind of, when we think about thoughts, so usually we have our body response and then the thoughts tend to come after. And so there's three big barriers, especially that Matt and I have noticed in our practice that a lot of clients will say. The three being, I don't want to be a burden. No one can help me or no one will understand, and I need to be strong and do this myself. Those are the three big ones that we see in our practice, probably on a quite regular basis. And so when we think about these thoughts coming in, and I'll use the burden one, I don't want to be a burden. What happens is, and the metaphor I like to use is, if you're on a fishing boat and you cast that line in and all the fish around you are just those little thoughts that are kind of floating in your head, eventually you're going to get hooked by one. And one's going to become that forefront, that I don't want to be a burden. And if you know, when you catch a fish, usually the fish swims away and that zing happens. And that's where I like to call it like the rabbit hole of thoughts comes in. So I don't want to be a burden. How do I ask for help? No one can help me. No one will understand. And it just spirals to the point where we end up severely almost like isolating and disconnecting ourselves because we get so wrapped up in our heads. And that can be extremely difficult if, you know, we're, like I said, isolating and distancing ourselves, but yet we also need that connection as well to bring us back into the present moment. So we can almost unhook from those thoughts or from that fish and bring it into something more positive and more adaptive. When I'm in session with a lot of clients, like I said, if the whole burden or no one will understand, I normally will ask them, like, if a friend was sitting here and kind of said the same thing, what would you say to them, or how would you handle that? And almost always they're like, I would listen to them. I want to help them. I'd want to do all these things, right? To be there for our friends and for our communities and even just for our support. So sometimes it's almost like flipping our thoughts where, how would we handle that if it was different? Or if it was our friends saying that to us? Of course we want to help them, right? And so, like I said, it's about getting unhooked from those thoughts as best we can. And when we can unhook, we can connect a lot easier. And so again, spiraling off of that, there's been some research that, again, Matt and I have found regarding introverts and extroverts and the pandemic. So when we talk about introverts, what we're typically meaning is there are people that usually require less stimulus to feel satisfied with connection. They might see their friends every once in a while or play online. Whereas the extroverts are like the social butterflies of the group. They're the ones that are talking and joking and, you know, are the ones at work or at school that are, like I said, the class clowns in the hallway, and they really need that social connection. So what we're finding in the research right now is when COVID and the pandemic first hit in March, the introverts were thriving. They were like, this is fantastic. I don't have to feel this guilt and this for not wanting to go see my friends. I can connect with them on my own time. We can do it virtually through gaming. And they were loving the working from home and all of that kind of stuff. So they were like totally thriving in their element, which means the extroverts were really struggling at the beginning because they weren't able to make those connections that they would normally have, or a lot of those coping strategies that the extroverts would use, like going to restaurants or going to movies with friends, weren't available to us. So it made it really, really difficult for the extroverts. Then as the pandemic went on, the extroverts were finding it really, well, I guess I should say they're being more creative in terms of making those connections and making it almost like up in different ways that they could go there throughout COVID, the pandemic, right? And so they were, I recently discovered Jackbox. So I give this example. We were playing with friends, we were playing all the mini games, we were having so much fun and really just like finding these different ways to connect. Whereas the introverts then, again, later on in the pandemic, really experienced more mental health symptoms because they needed that connection, but they didn't think they realized that they needed at the beginning. And so it was really difficult for them to get creative and to make that extra effort to reach out. I know, again, I can probably speak for most of us, is now with the pandemic and with all the lockdowns, we do have to make that extra effort to reach out to our friends. We do have to make that extra effort to make plans and to stay in connection because, you know, we can't go to work or can't go to school and see them all every day, right? So it's that constant extra effort that the introverts are really struggling with right now. That being said, the last question, that Matt and I usually get is, who do I reach out to or what do I do? And introverts or extroverts, Matt and I always encourage our clients to write down 2 names of people already in our lives that you would be able to reach out to, or maybe a stronger support in your life, or that you'd want to grow that relationship with. Whether those 2 people you already know and want to reconnect with, or maybe they're new friends you've met that you think might be a really good support for you. And so we'd really encourage our clients to do that and really just to try to make that extra effort to reach out. If you're noticing a friend becoming more and more distant, it might be, again, making that extra effort to continually reach out to them because they might not potentially be in the best headspace, like I said, if they're thinking that they're going to burden everybody with their problems. So really make that extra effort and continue to reach out to each other. We're all in this together, and hopefully we can all come out together. And we're, like I said, just reaching out in connection is so, so important, not only with ourselves, but with everybody else. So I'll pass that back to Jordan.
That was amazing, and I think you gave a lot of really timely advice, as well as a lot of tangible outcomes that we can take from that, right? So thank you. So we want to view connection in a holistic sense, and now that we've kind of tackled ourselves and our immediate surroundings, I'd like to tag in our last guest, Elyse, to tell us about what resources exist for people to reach out to, either in an emergency situation or just for general support if that situation arises. So Elyse?
Yes, so thank you. I'm going to hit you with a whole bunch of resources, which is why I asked to do a PowerPoint slide, because I find when I'm going to go fast and furious into resources, it's like, you know, drinking from the fire hose, so to speak. So this will be available. You'll be able to, you know, if you're watching the playback, record it. And I know, Jordan, we talked about sharing a lot of these resources on your site as well. And I have to apologize. There is one resource that as we were talking, I was like, oh, shoot, it's not in here. So I'll reference it and then I'll update it for when I send it to you, Jordan. So, okay. So I'm just going to quickly go over a little bit about CMHAs. So CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association. And so I'm coming from the Edmonton region, which is, CMHA is broken up into a multitude of different levels. So you have the organization that exists at the national level. Each province has a CMHA that is a separate division. And then each province is broken up into regional levels. So within the Edmonton region, we do extend outside of the city limits and support a lot of rural communities as well. So within CMHA Edmonton, our vision is to build mentally healthy people in caring communities. The mission is building healthy and resilient communities by providing mental health services, education, resources, and crisis intervention. And then we have the following values of social justice and inclusivity, empathetic, respectful relationships, and collaboration and partnerships, which is so lovely for us to be here. So starting off, I'm not going to read through every single resource that I have on here, but just kind of touch on some of the ones that I think are really important or beneficial for folks, especially from a connection standpoint. So CMHA houses the distress line. And so it's available both Edmonton, but it's also available rurally if you don't live within the city limits. And it's a available 24/7 distress line that is available for either folks who are experiencing distress or in a crisis situation, as well as loved ones. So if you are supporting someone, you know, we've talked a lot about reaching out. If you're finding that you have folks in your life that are reaching out and having some mental and emotional distress, you can use this as well to help get some supportive conversation around how you might be able to support them. There's also the ability to chat with the crisis workers via online. It's usually 7 days a week, and there's varying evening and afternoon times. But for some folks, rather than having a conversation, it might feel a little more comfortable to participate in an online chat. So that's an option as well, and that can be accessed directly from the Edmonton CMHA website. CMHA also houses 211, which is a province-wide resource, which I know has been in the news a lot for some of the varying things going on. So it as well is 24/7 and is information and referral line. So this is a non-emergent line, but they can definitely refer you on if you're just like, I don't know who to contact and I don't know where my list of resources is. 211's a great start and they can always direct you. They've been really great as far as updating resources during the pandemic. So a lot of in-person services obviously switched to online. And so they've done a really great job of throughout the province really knowing what's available in person, what's available online, and what program maybe isn't happening or has changed. I also want to just talk a little bit about the programs within CMHA Edmonton. So we have a number of different programs, but just highlighting a few key ones. So first off, we have our suicide grief support program. So that is for loved ones who or caregivers of loved ones who have either died by suicide or are actively in that space. And so there's a support group, but there's also one-on-one support as well. And this can be for support for people who maybe are, in the realm of their loved one is really having a hard time with suicide, and it can help to support you to support them. So you're not feeling that burden and that, not burden, but that challenge of maybe not knowing what to say or what to do in those really challenging situations. For Caregiver Connections, which is the program that I run, we are a peer support group for caregivers of loved ones with mental illness. And we run a peer support group online, and then we also do one-on-one peer support as well, and get out into the community and share around that, because again, as has been shared, that community and connection is so important, whether you are the person who is experiencing the mental health challenges or you're supporting the people with mental health. It's really important to connect with each other. CMHA also offers a lot of education. So we do a lot of adult community education for organizations potentially that would like us to come out and talk about a variety of topics. Right now, we're not offering as much on the assist and mental health first aid because they are in-person programs. I know there's been some trying to get that online, but that's been a bit of a challenge, but that is something in the future that's available. Living Life to the Full is a really great course that is for cost, but is offered online through CMHA. And then we have Recovery College, which is a low cost, no cost option, and it has a ton of different courses. They run them quarterly and on all different types of topics, like building better boundaries, effective communication, all sorts of things. So they update that every quarter and it's available. And you can just always check on the CMHA website and find out what's going on for that quarter. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight Advocacy and Wayfinding. So we have a couple of folks in that group that support people with either lived experience or their loved ones to find the supports and services they need and advocate for themselves. So it's often those folks that are having a tough time and really needing some support in figuring out where to go and what to do next. So here we have a whole bunch of community resource phone numbers. I know Jordan has a bunch of these on their living document, and then a few extras to add. And those are all, I believe, 24/7 and available for folks to reach out to. Alberta Health Services has a number of supports as well in regards to addictions, eating disorders. They have their mental health helpline, and they do offer some single session therapy. So that can all be accessed through the link that's provided here. And another really important one to note is Access 24/7. A lot of folks know about Access 24/7 now. They are a very full service support. So if you are in need of you're in that crisis situation, or I've had caregivers who their loved ones have gone there because they need to see a psychiatrist, and maybe they're on a wait list through their family doctor, or they're having a hard time getting into the mental health system. Access 24/7 can be a great entryway into that because they will refer you and support you through that process. There's a number of different organizations that are offering free single session counseling in the Edmonton area. Many of them have moved online. So these are some options. You can look them up. Most of them, if they're shifting their services, they're pretty good about updating the websites and making sure that that information is there. But again, if you're ever finding conflicting information, because obviously times are changing a lot right now, contacting 211 is always a great kind of bridging point, because they'll be able to share that information and keep everything up to date. And then I wanted to go just into some online mental health tools. So Stress Strategies is a really cool coaching tool that is broken down into different areas of life that tend to cause us stress. So let's say we're talking about finances, you can click through that, and it's kind of like a it's a built through process where it helps you develop strategies to support the stressful situations in your life. So it allows you to kind of hone in on a certain area. It's free of charge, and then you can build out a plan to support yourself through whatever challenges you're having. Mental health co-pilots, I just love them as an organization. They're a not-for-profit in Edmonton. And I like to kind of say, a lot of my clients have used them, and I like to say they're like a matchmaking service for counseling supports in the Edmonton area. So you would fill out their form online, they would reach out to you, and then you let them know what you're looking for. So, maybe you're looking for a counselor psychologist with sliding scale fees because finances are tight right now, or you're looking for somebody to support with a specific mental health issue. They can go through their directory, find out who might fit those needs, and then give you that contact information so that you can reach out to them. And so it takes the challenge of like finding the right fit out a little bit more. Another really wonderful organization that is supportive in community is We All Believe in You, and they are a peer support group for people with lived experience with mental illness or mental health challenges. And they are doing groups online. And I know for a while they were doing walking peer support groups as well. So if you're one of those folks that's finding yourself in that situation of, I'm having, I'm finding myself in these places, I'm really struggling with that lack of community and connection point. They're a wonderful organization that can get you in contact with people who are experiencing similar things. And lastly, just some further community resources online. So Mind Your Mind has a lot of great resources for both organizations as well as yourself as a person, and then also provide some tools and tips and information as well. Edmonton.cmha.ca is obviously the CMHA Edmonton website, where you can find all of our services and connection to the distress line 211, as well as Recovery College and any of our programming. Mental Health Works is a branch of CMHA that is focused on organizations and supporting their mental wellness. And then Wellness Together is another one that has a lot of great information for both individuals as well as community organizations. So I will turn it back over to you, Jordan. I know that was a lot. That was like,
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. All the information was so vital, and again, don't worry if you weren't able to write any of that down. We'll be updating our wellness resources with all the information. You could revisit this video once it's posted, or if you're already doing that, you could just rewind the video and pause it. Whatever's going to work for you. But that brings us to the end of our panel. I hope you were all able to learn something about the value of connection in the mental health space, especially as we just passed the year-long mark of this pandemic. Connection starts with you, the individual, and has an impact on how that connection radiates from you to others. So connection and your mental health are intertwined, so it's important to make sure that you yourself are okay and have the vocabulary to describe what you're feeling. Before I make my closing remarks, I'd like to plug one thing that's in the works, which is another mental health panel that AESA will be producing. So for May's Health and Wellness module, Kristen, our Health and Wellness executive, will be joined by Matt and Alex to do a deep dive on the topics that we've briefly touched on today. So keep an eye on the AESA Twitter for more details on that. If it's anything like the sleep module, it will be extremely informative. I'd like to hand it over to my guests for any last words and where you can find them if you have any further questions. Matt?
So I guess the obvious plug for Alex and I is that we just opened up a brand new office yesterday. So it's been a crazy couple of weeks, but we have a brand new space right off of the Anthony Henday in Sherwood Park. So even if you're not from Sherwood Park, it literally takes 1 minute. It's like 1 minute into Sherwood Park, so it doesn't take very long to get. We both do have recent availability. So if you're looking to kind of do some more long-term work to kind of like pick at some things that you've been wanting to work on in your own personal life for a while, then we've got the time, and we are absolutely ready to have you come and see us. And so, yeah, just want to let you guys know that we got an exciting new space, and we got open arms ready for any of you who would be interested in working with Alex Ray.
Perfect. Alex?
Again, Matt, Matt's on it today. Yeah, the new space is open. We're super excited. And as Matt said, yeah, we're ready to take a few more clients on, and open arms, ready for it. And as well, just to add on to what Matt said, we are covered by most benefits and insurance companies. And we also do virtual sessions as well if you don't drive or can't get to the office. So that is an option as well. And thanks to AESA for having us on today.
Our pleasure. Elyse, any last words?
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. It's been lovely to connect with you all. If there's any questions about any of the resources that I've shared, or any interest in connecting with me, all of my contact information is on the CMHA Edmonton website under the Caregiver Connections program. All of our programming for the most part is online right now, and will remain so for the foreseeable future. And there's been a real intent to continue that, because one thing that I think positively has come out of this pandemic is that we are connecting resources for people outside of the kind of general urban hubs. So, I have folks joining me from Edson, from Fort Saskatchewan, and people that wouldn't necessarily drive downtown to come to a drop-in group. So all that said, check out the CMHA website. There's lots of really great online programs right now.
Perfect. So thank you again to Matt and Alex, our friends from Mindbuffs, and our extra special guest, Elyse from the Canadian Mental Health Association Edmonton region, for joining me on this panel. I hope all of you out there were able to take something away from our time together, and I thank you for taking the time out of their day to join us tonight. Enjoy the rest of Edmonton Direct, and we'll see you all next time. See you.